Alrighty. Welcome back to another brother to brother chat. This is episode 7. First sip, we're about to hit the gym, and we're doing a little protein shake today. This is something that I don't often do, to be honest. Like, this is kind of like a one-off, but we're doing a little bit of a lean bulk. We started off at probably around like 82 kgs, and over the last almost 2 months, we're now at 87. We gained 5 kilograms. And the way I like to bulk is a bit different to how others do it. More of like a dirty bulk, just gain as much mass, both fat and muscle. I like to stay relatively lean. I feel like it's the healthiest way to do it, and also the most sustainable too. So, and I find that especially when, like right now, I'm at 3,000 calories and I'm not used to eating this much. So I find sometimes, as an emergency, it is good to get your calories in through liquid. But reverse engineering that as well, if you are cutting down, the opposite applies. If you are on more of a diet and you're restricting calories, liquid calories is going to make it very hard for you to stay in that deficit. So it's kind of like it's not a hard and fast rule, but it's something to consider. I have started a cycle. And if you press on this video, you're probably curious. You're like, what is this cycle you're talking about, Chad? Are you on steroids? Are you enhanced now? I am on a cycle, but it is not what you think it is. And I titled this video to draw you in because I want to really demonstrate a point. And that is that this might get me in trouble, but I do genuinely feel like lifters and gym goers that do hop on gear or are enhanced lose a lot of credibility, because you can basically get away with a lot more and still get the physique. It's kind of like cheating at the end of the day. And I feel like you don't really know if the coach, like your coach, if he's on gear, right? Like, let's say he's on gear, you don't really know if he knows what he's talking about. Your physique doesn't actually give him any credibility because he's shortcutted his way there. So I'm a big advocate on staying natural for life. Obviously, there's a lot of reasons why that's the case, but I thought I'd share with you my cycle, the natty cycle that I use to get absolutely shredded year round. All right. And there's like 3 main pillars to this: training load, number 2, fuel, and number 3, recovery. And I'll get into each of these separately, and I'll just briefly skim through all of them. So starting off with the training load. A lot of people, they hit the gym with no intention. They don't have a plan. They walk in, they try a bunch of Instagram workouts, because I know this because I used to be that guy, right? I used to just walk in, get a pump and leave, but the pump isn't actual muscle growth. That is just damage. That is just inflammation. That's blood flow going to the area. And that is not the main factor for muscle growth. So, and you'll notice, like, I just want to side note, the way I like to educate is by teaching the principles, because the principles inform the specifics. At the end of the day, specifics are only the cherry on top. They're the tactics. They're the how to do it, right? And that is going to be individual to the person. That's the thing that I really am not a fan of nowadays with the industry, like fitness industry, health industry, all of those things. They are so quick to put people in buckets and be like, there's no way, if you're doing this, then there's no way you're going to grow like this. Like, it's so dogmatic. We're putting people in all these buckets and be like, you have to do this, you have to do this, avoid seed oils, or like, cut out all sugar, or like, like just absolute like definitive statements like that really don't help, right? And it leads to a path of restriction that don't make the transformation you're trying to undergo sustainable. So what I preach is the principles. If you have a good understanding of the principles, if you know the rules of the game, then You can use them, manipulate them to your favor to get exactly where you want to be in a path and plan that is 100% sustainable for you, right? And also, when you know the rules of the game, you can also break the rules of the game time, like every now and then, and you're still gonna get results. And I put out this story the other day, and I was like, I just had a pre-workout of tequila and ice cream, and I got like an insane pump. And people were like, "Oh, there's no way you had tequila. There's no way you had ice cream, Chad. Aren't you meant to be like this health guy?" And I'm like, bro, I train hard. I train every single day, almost every single day. I push the limit. So my body is resilient enough to do the things that you consider unhealthy and bad guilt free. That is the whole point of leading a healthy life. You give your body the anti fragility, right? You become anti fragile, right? Such that you can actually do things that are considered bad for you and do them guilt free. Like, it allows you to live your life. That's people that don't really realize. They think that chasing a fitness journey and grinding to make themselves better physically is going to mean cutting out everything they like from their life. Restricting their favorite foods, getting rid of all of that. But it is totally not like that. It is actually giving you empowerment because you are now in control of your life, right? It's giving you freedom because you are now blessed with an abundance of energy to do the things that you want to do. And it's also freedom in the sense of your mind is now liberated from the box that you put yourself in. You have proved to yourself that you're capable enough to transform and instilled that self-belief, and that bleeds into every other area of your life, without a doubt. So that's just a side note that the plan for you is going to be very specific, but I like to preach the principles because the principles inform the specifics. If you understand the principles, you are going to win the game, my friend. All right. So the principles of training. Let's get into it. A lot of people hit the gym, they don't really know what they're doing. Right? They just do Instagram workouts. I used to be that guy. Right? A lot of people, they really dwell on the workout split, but I'll tell you why that's actually not the most important thing. The only thing that's important about workout split is whether you enjoy it or not. All right. But the principles are this. Number one, you have to be training with progressive overload and prioritizing mechanical tension in every single set. Mechanical tension is that factor for growth. It's not actually the pump as people think it is, right? The pump is only just blood flow to the area. It's a side effect of lifting, but it's not the primary stimuli of growth. Mechanical tension is. What is mechanical tension? It is the force that your muscle absorbs during a lift. Okay. And that can be both the time that you put your muscle under tension, but also the tension itself, the load that you put it under. Right. So the principle here is your muscle is going to adapt to whatever stimulus you give it. And if you keep giving it the same stimulus every single session, it is not going to grow because it's not going to have a reason to grow. All right, muscles only grow if it needs to expand. All right, so give your muscle a reason to grow. Train, make your training session more difficult every single time. You should be hitting a PB every single session. And if you physically can't do that, then there's probably something wrong with the other two pillars of recovery and nutrition that stop you from doing that. If you have those on lock, training must be to failure. You must really push the intensity. And even I'm a fan of low volume, where you actually don't do too many reps and don't even do too much volume either, like sets per muscle group. Maybe 8 to 10, 10 to 12 perhaps. If you're a newer lifter, maybe that might be 10 to 15, but nowhere above that. Right? And that's where I feel like I used to fall for this trap heaps. When I used to look at everyone online who's talking, and they'd all be on gear, and they'd be advocating like 20 sets per week, right? And the problem with this is like, you are not on gear yourself. right? So if you're following advice from people who are on steroids, who have superhuman recovery abilities, they're in an anabolic environment 24/7, right? Because of what they're injecting. So they can physically take that volume. You as a natural, especially if you're starting out, cannot. You cannot effectively recover from this. Right? So I was actually training more, more days per week about a year from now. I was training more days per week. I was doing more sets, but I actually wasn't growing as much as I am now. Right? So more isn't always going to give you more growth. More volume isn't always going to mean more growth. It's the intention that you take each set at. Don't count the reps, make the reps count. Take yourself to a place where you haven't been in the last session. All right? It really is as simple as that. Don't overcomplicate it. And that brings me to the point of exercise selection. I see so much nowadays as like, oh, you got to do this variation and this variation to get sculpted shoulders. Do you know what I did for shoulders? To grow these cap delts, ladder raises, and overhead press. I've never done anything else in my entire life. I've done only these two exercises. Same for back. All I ever did was lat pull down and rows. That's it. Bicep. All I ever did was bicep curl. All right. It really is not that complicated. Maturing is realizing you don't need a million different exercise variations to grow. It's a muscle, contract the muscle. It is really as simple as that. Okay, so when it comes to exercise selection, focus on choosing compound lifts. Compound exercises, especially if you are training less than 4 times per week, are going to give you the biggest bang for buck because they're going to target more than one muscle at a time rather than isolation exercises, which are only going to isolate one muscle at a time. So examples of compound lifts that I go through are your bench, deadlift, squat, pull-ups, dips, rows. What else? Yeah, those are compound lifts. And by doing these and getting stronger at these as your main lifts, you are going to build an incredible physique, regardless of lateral raises, regardless of bicep curl. If you focus on the basics and get stronger at the compounds, you are going to build more muscle in your whole body. All right, as simple as that. Okay, so when it actually comes to exercise selection, focus on these things. All right, for chest, 2 movement patterns, pushing and flies. Okay, for back, 2 movement patterns, a vertical pull or a horizontal pull. Okay, for shoulders, push or fly. Okay, for arms, biceps, flexion. For triceps, extension. All right, for quads, you have 2 movements. You got a squat, and you also got a leg extension, a knee extension. For hamstrings, you got a hinge, so it's like kind of like from the hips coming through, so like a deadlift. That's a hinge, hip hinge, or a knee flexion. Okay, that's also hamstrings. And then accessories on top of that, you can maybe add in some calf raises, some ab crunches, and that's basically it. All right, so really simplify it down, guys. Right, if you focus on all those core movement patterns and balance each of those into your program, you're going to be set up for an incredible run. Right, you're going to be set up perfectly training wise. Okay, and the last thing when it comes to training, rep ranges. What rep range should I do? How many sets should I do, etc. It really fucking doesn't matter, guys. Right, this is the thing that most people just overhype, and it literally doesn't matter. I've tried every rep range under the sun. I've done 10 to 15. I've even done sometimes 15 plus when I was doing calisthenics at home. I was doing sometimes below 10, 6 to 8. It really doesn't matter, but I do want you to consider this, right? There was a recent study that published that anywhere between 5 and 30 reps, as long as they're taken to failure, right? So this is the primary indicator. That is the independent factor for all these rep ranges. They're taken to failure. Okay, so any rep range actually from 5 to 30, they saw very almost identical results in terms of muscle growth. Any rep range from 5 to 30. So I'll ask you just a question that I'm sure you can answer yourself, and that is, would you rather test your cardio and your time by doing 30 reps, or would you rather do the least reps possible to get the same result? Take into a higher intensity. The answer is clear for me, and that's why I always did on the lower side of that range. I always did 6 to 8 reps when it came to compound lifts, maybe 8 to 12 for some isolation exercises. And that's it. All right. The only reason I did higher reps for some isolation is because isolation, you can probably put more, you can put more strain on your joints. So I did higher reps with a lower weight, but for compound lifts, I went crazy. Test your strength, bro. And that will allow you to really train at that high intensity as well if you do lower reps and heavier weights. So that's what I've done, and it works. All right, so that's it. That's probably all I'm going to talk about in terms of training. But yeah, really keep it simple. Now, recovery. Now, recovery. A lot of people think when I talk about recovery, it's like just 7 to 9 hours of sleep, and that's all recovery. That's all there is to recovery. But it's also making sure that your body is actually recovered for each session. So let's say if you hit chest on Monday, you want to at least wait probably 48 hours before you hit chest again to make sure that your chest is fresh. So that's also another thing, recovery, and also reducing. And recovery is a lot also to do with hormones. So making sure that your stress hormone, your cortisol levels are under control. You're also optimizing things like your testosterone, which is going to do a lot for your physiology. And then, yeah, also as well, making sure that you're not only getting enough sleep, but enough quality sleep too. And the last point when it comes to recovery is making sure that you are fueling yourself correctly. So it brings me to the third pillar, and that's fuel. All right, so how are you actually going to fuel your body? How does it work? So there's actually a hierarchy of importance when it comes to nutrition. And at the very foundational level, it is calories. Okay. Calories in, calories out isn't everything, but it's also going to be a great deal in terms of whether you lose weight, gain weight, or stay the same weight. Okay. As you probably already know, a calorie deficit is what you're going to do if you want to lose weight, and a calorie surplus is what you're going to run if you want to gain weight. Now, I love to say this all the time to my clients because it's very true. Calories equals your weight, macros equals how you look, and micros is how you feel. And a lot of people, they dwell on the calorie side of things all the time. Calories in, calories out. It's just calories in, calories out. But when you ask them, like, do you actually want to lose weight or do you want to lose fat? It's usually the former. They want to lose fat. And to lose fat, you have to look at your macros. And a lot of people neglect this. You need to be getting enough protein to keep and build more muscle while shredding fat at the same time. Okay, and this is where the rule of thumb for protein is you want to get around 2 grams per kilogram of body weight of protein per day. So if I weigh 80, I'm going to get at least 160 grams of protein per day. Now, right now, my macro split, I'm getting 200 grams of protein a day, right? So this is going to change depending on your situation, depending on your goal, and depending on how sustainable you can be with it, right? But as a general rule of thumb, you want to aim for 2 grams per kilogram of your body weight in protein. That's a major thing when it comes to your macro split. Protein is the king of all macros. All right. Carbs are going to be used as a recovery tool and to fuel, give yourself the energy to perform at your maximum capacity during your workouts. And fats are mainly there for hormonal regulation. They're actually really important. A lot of people, like, they really dwell on getting low fats or no fats, and that's absolute BS. You need fats. You need healthy fats to sustain your hormones and provide you with sustainable energy, skin support, organ health, like fats, like the absorption of vitamins as well. Very important. And getting your essential fats in, like omega 3s, omega 6s, right, in the right balance. So fats are also going to be extremely important. I typically aim for around 0.8 to 1 gram of fat per kilogram that you weigh. And then carbs, you just want to fill the rest in with carbs. Whatever calories you've got left, in the bank, fill the rest with carbs. Go crazy. All right. Now, here's where a lot of people mess up. And they're like, Jad, how do I stay lean year round? Like, because I know a lot of people, they choose, let's say they want to bulk and they just become like a pillow. They get a lot of fat and muscle because they eat a lot of calories and they don't use those calories or don't deserve those calories. So you're going to get a lot of fat as a result, right? So my approach to bulking is quite unique in the sense of like I said, a lean bulk. And how that's done is you want to focus on quality first. A lot of people, they jump to the calorie gain without mastering the basics, and that is the quality of their food. That's a huge thing that people miss. All right, quality is extremely important because it's going to give you that how you feel aspect, which is what we referred to earlier as micronutrients. That is only going to come in real whole foods. Okay, God has given us everything we need to thrive nutrition wise. Okay, so I want, like, what I do is I consume 90% of my diet to 100% of my diet from whole, unprocessed, single ingredient foods. Okay, protein, go for animal based protein, meats, chicken, fish, beef, right? Steaks, I love them. Carbs, the four Trojan horses of carbs. I always tell my clients: potatoes, white or sweet, doesn't matter. Rice, vegetables, and fruit. Fruit, fast acting carb. Honey, fast acting carb. And then complex carbs like potatoes, rice can be used post and pre workout as well. All right. Fats, healthy fats. They come in the form of avocados, things like olive oil, of course, in moderation. If you are cutting, you don't want to overdo the oils. That's a big trap that most people fall for, is they think they're in a calorie deficit, but they're not actually tracking their oils, and those things add up. A tablespoon of olive oil is like, I don't know, near 100 calories. You'd be surprised. So make sure you are tracking your oils. But oils are also good oils, like olive oil, coconut oil, even butter, ghee. They're all sources of fat. And then you got your nuts, and your animal fats as well. So like the fat that comes with your beef, etc. Right. So that's just the basic rundown of examples of all the macronutrients. Make sure you're getting them in the right portion, and you're getting them from good quality whole food sources. Right. There's no point chasing calories or even tracking calories if you're not eating quality foods first, because especially if you are aiming to lose fat and tracking your calories for that, you're going to feel like shit if you haven't optimized quality first. Okay, you're going to feel drained. Your body's always going to tell you you're hungry. And the reason being is because you haven't actually given yourself enough micronutrients to signal to your body that it's full yet. Okay, so you're going to be low energy, fatigued, hungry. That is not a good place to be. And it's not required even to be making progress. You can feel great while making progress. For example, my client, David, who lost 70 kilograms, I think 7 kilograms over the last 8 weeks, and he doesn't feel hungry anymore. He used to feel more hungry when he was heavier. When we optimized quality of the foods, he actually felt less hungry, less bloated, more energy, and he was shredding fat. Okay, so it's very possible to do all these things if you have the foundation of the quality down first. Simple as that. So, yeah, that's just a bit of a rundown. I was just kind of ranting. I don't really have a plan for this video, but thought I'd just drop some game, help you guys out. If you found this video helpful, subscribe and let me know it was helpful, because I love reading the support. Jad the Chad, peace out.